There are moments on a healing journey where something happens that you cannot quite explain. Now, not because it wasn't real, but because the words for it haven't arrived yet. Now, this is one of those episodes. Welcome back to the Wonders Within podcast. I'm Nikki Denham, founder of Wellness Wonders Australia. And this is a bonus episode, something that I felt called to share with you while it was still fresh, while it was still unfolding and still a little raw around the edges, because I think there is something in the unfinished moments, in the healing that is still happening, and in the honest middle of a journey rather than the tidy end of one. And so today I'm bringing you with me into something new, something a little unfamiliar, and something that has already changed me in ways that I'm still discovering. Now, a little while ago, I booked something that I had been curious about for a very long time, and that is a light language activation session. Now, if that phrase is new to you, then stay with me because I will explain what it is shortly. But first, I want to take you into what led me there. Now, you know from this podcast that I am someone who does the work, whether it be therapy, somatic healing, chakra work, journaling, or meditation. I have spent years peeling back layers and learning to understand myself more deeply. And yet, there are still places in me that feel stuck. Places that haven't shifted no matter how much conscious work I bring to them. And one of those places is my throat chakra. And that comes along with the fear of being seen, the fear of being heard, and the wound of not fully speaking my truth. Now, I've touched on this before, and if you've been listening for a little while, you might recognize it because it shows up quietly. It shows up in the holding back, in the almost saying something and then swallowing it down. And I wanted to go somewhere deeper with this, somewhere my thinking mind couldn't follow and try to control. So I booked the session and I prepared. Now, I did ask the facilitator that I was working with what I could do to prepare, and she did suggest a cleanse, like a juice cleanse or a fast. Not big on fasting myself. I do like sustenance and food in my body, so I opted for the juice cleanse. She also suggested that I do some serious grounding. So I did a Google search and I found a variety of fruit and vegetables that did assist in grounding. So I did make a fresh juice from organic beetroot, carrot, lemon, orange, and ginger. So that is what I drank for the 2 days beforehand. And that was just to clear my body and to create the conditions for whatever needed to happen. And then on the day I showed up. Now, the session was via a video call with the beautiful Sharna Teresa, who is based in New South Wales. And from the very first moment, I knew I was safe and in powerful hands. Now, what Sharna does is extraordinary. She called in my guides, she called in her guides, and she drew energy from sacred portals around the world. So Egypt, Stonehenge, Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro, and she held a space that felt enormous, like something far bigger than the two of us was present in that call. And then something started to happen in my body. Now, it began to move, to rock, to jolt, and shake. And not because I was making it happen, because I wasn't. I was simply allowing it. I allowed it to do whatever it needed to do, to move, to sway, to shake. Now, at one point through the session, my eyes began to water, and not the way they do when you're sad or happy. It wasn't emotional crying. It was something else, something releasing through me that I just didn't have a name for. And then I just felt this electricity, and I felt it in my hands like a surge, electricity moving through my palms. And then my hands began to move intuitively and instinctively and in the flowing gestures of light language. Which brings me to the teaching portion of today, because I want to pause here and explain what light language actually is. Now, light language is something that exists outside of our conventional understanding of communication. Now, it is described as a multi-dimensional energetic language, one that originates beyond the human mind and speaks directly to the soul, the body, and our energetic field. And it is not something that you learn intellectually. It is something that moves through you. And it can come through sound, it can come through as vocal toning or channeled speech, or even through the body as specific hand movements and gestures that carry energetic frequency. Now, the premise is that we are not just physical beings, we are energetic ones. And sometimes the body, the soul, and the subconscious hold things that ordinary language simply cannot reach. Now, light language bypasses the thinking mind entirely. It doesn't ask you to understand it, it asks you to receive it. Now, I know that might sound really unfamiliar for some, and that is okay. And I'm not asking you to believe it in the way that I do. I am simply inviting you to stay open, because what happened in my body during that session was undeniably real, whatever that explanation. And here is what I want you to sit with. How often do we try to think our way through healing? How often do we reach for the explanation before we allow the experience? Now, light language asked me to do the opposite, to experience first and to understand later. And something in me responded. Now, here's the part that I want to be honest with you about, because this episode is not a story of a breakthrough. Well, not just yet anyway. Now, during the session, I could feel something in my throat, a tightening and an urge to cough, and that happened a few times throughout the session. And the sense that something wanted to come through, wanted so badly to come through, but couldn't quite make it. The vocal channeling of light language, the sounds and the toning, it was right there. I could feel it on the edge of me, and my hands were working to clear it, to open it. But the words just didn't come for me in that session. Now, the session went for an hour and a half, so we were working through that for a very long time. And at the end, Sharna, who is also psychic, confirmed what I had felt in my own body, a significant block in my throat chakra. And she worked to clear it in that session also. And while it did shift somewhat, it was still there. Now, she also named something that landed pretty heavily in me after that session. She said that there is a truth that I'm not yet speaking to someone in my life, and that unspoken truth is contributing to that blockage. Now, I won't share the full details here because it is personal and it involves someone that I do love. But I will say this, I recognized it in the moment that she said it, and my body knew before my mind even caught up. Now, Sharna's suggestion was gentle and wise. She said, maybe find someone that you trust and say the words to them, because the throat doesn't need the exact person or the perfect moment. It just needs to know it's safe to speak. Now, I'm still sitting with that information and still working out what that looks like for me, but I think it deserves to be said out loud, because not every session ends with a breakthrough, and that is still okay. Sometimes the session surfaces the wound more than it resolves it, and that is still progress. Now, after that session, like I said, it went for an hour and a half, so it was quite lengthy, but I was completely spent, exhausted in that deep cellular way that tells you that something significant has moved through you. And I decided that I needed a massage, so I went and got an hour-long massage, and then after that, I felt absolutely drained. I felt faint, and I felt like I needed to eat and to really ground myself back into my body, and so that's what I did. So the next day I decided to go out into the forest, and something absolutely beautiful happened. So I went out to the Kuitpo Forest here in South Australia, and I found myself standing with my hands pressed against these enormous ancient trees. Now, I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I just felt drawn to do it. And what I felt coming back through my hands, through my palms, was extraordinary. A vibration, a warmth, and my hands actually began to shake with electricity when I removed them from the tree. Now, it was a definite energetic exchange between me and something ancient and rooted and completely alive. And it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Now, I also noticed in the days following the session that my intuition has felt sharper and more immediate. So much so that I had a dear friend come over, and I decided to do an oracle card reading for both her and for myself. And they were so precisely on point that it stopped us both for a moment. Something opened in me. Even if the throat was still working through it, like to clear it, something opened in me. And then, because I never do anything in halves, last night I decided to go to a sonic sound healing session with the beautiful Sally Tapscott. And it involves sound bowls and somatic movements and vocal toning for each of the chakras. And in doing that session, I felt it in my throat, something softening, something beginning to move that had been held tightly for so long. Now, I am not on the other side of this yet, but I am in motion, and that matters. So here is what I want you to sit with this week. So grab your journal, find a quiet space and ask yourself, is there a truth that you are not speaking? Is there something living in your throat, in your chest, or in the quiet parts of you that hasn't been given permission to exist yet? And where are you holding back? Where are you swallowing something down? And what would it feel like to say it, even just to yourself, even just on paper? Now, you don't have to send the message and you don't have to have the conversation or say it out loud. Just simply write them down and let your throat know that it is safe to speak here. Now, if this episode stirred something in you, and if you recognized yourself in the holding back, the unspoken truth, or the fear of being seen or heard, I would love to hear from you. Now, you can reach me directly by email or come find me over on my socials. Everything is linked in the show notes below. And included in that is how to contact myself and Sharna Teresa, and also Sally Tapscott if you would like to work with them, because I do recommend booking with both of these incredible women. Now, you can work with Sharna Teresa globally, and Sally Tapscott is here in Adelaide, South Australia. But like I said, all details are below. So that's me sharing a very current experience, and I'm super excited for. So that's why I've decided to share that as a bonus episode. So thank you for being here for this one. And I know that it's a little different and a little further into the unknown than we usually go together, but I believe in bringing you on the real journey, not just the highlight reel, not the healed version looking back, coming in the actual middle of it. Now, your throat is allowed to find its voice in its own time and in its own way. And if nobody has told you lately, your truth matters. And what lives inside you matters. And you're allowed to take up space with it. Now, until next time, bye for now.